All right, in this video, we're going to be talking about scoring rounds. Obviously, in mixed martial arts, we're using a 10-point must system, and we use that to score each round individually. You're not judging a fight based on the totality of the entire fight. You judge the fight based on each round, and then at the end of the fight, the rounds are tallied, and then a score is given. A must system is based on the boxing 10-point round system, with the 10 being given to the winner of the round, and a 9, 8, or 7 being given to the loser of the round. And there's different ways that that's figured out, and the ABC Unified rules have simplified that and have spelled out what makes a round what. So we're going to go ahead and we will refer to the ABC Unified rules. And up first we have 10-10 rounds. So if you're going to get a 10-10 round, it's basically, obviously, a tie round, right? A 10-10 round in MMA is when both fighters have competed for whatever duration of time in the round, and there is no difference in advantage between either fighter. So the damage is even, or in some cases, the lack of damage is even. That's when you're going to see 10-10 rounds the most. That typically will happen when there's not a lot of action going on. A 10-10 round in MMA should be extremely rare and is not a score to be used as an excuse by a judge that cannot assess the differences in the round. So just because you may not see something, you really have to be paying attention. You should be able to make a decision on a winner in most contests. So 10-10 is not to be used as an excuse. A 10-10 round in MMA is a necessity to have for the judge's possible score, mainly due to scoring incomplete rounds. It is possible to have a round where both fighters engage for 5 minutes, and at the end of 5-minute time period, the output, impact, and effectiveness and overall competition between the two fighters is exactly the same. It is possible. However, very rare, very, very unlikely. If there is any discernible difference between the two fighters during the round, the judge shall not give the score of 10-10. So even if it is slightly, minusculely, barely different, it's still different. And you still have to judge that at 10-9. You can't go 10-10 on that. Again, that's why it is, in fact, so rare. The next scoring that's possible is the 10-9 round. And this is pretty much how a lot of rounds go. A 10-9 round in MMA is the most common score a judge assesses during the night. If the judge sees that a fighter lands better strikes, better submission attempts, utilize more effective grappling during the competition, even if it's just by one technique over their opponent, the judge shall give the winning fighter a score of 10 while assessing the losing fighter with a score of 9. It's important that judges understand that a score of 9 is not an automatic score that is just given to the losing fighter. So if some guy gets, absolutely trampled, just because he lost doesn't mean you give him a 9. You could give him less, but a 9 is basically means that there was a slight advantage. The judge must consider when assessing a round the score of 9. Again, not automatic, but was the fighter engaged in offensive actions during the round? Did the losing fighter compete with an attitude of attempting to win the fight, or was he just trying to survive the offensive actions of the opponent? A score 10-9 can reflect extremely close rounds or a round of marginal domination and or impact. Again, you want to be looking at a few things when a 10-9 round occurs. One, it can just be a slight advantage. It could just be this dude barely squeaked by, and he or she, was able to put it away. Doesn't matter. 10-9 round, right? However, when you're looking to go to maybe a lower, like a 10-8 or something like that, you have to consider these things too. Was the losing fighter, was he landing strikes? Was he or she causing damage? Were they, trying to end the fight? Or were they completely being dominated? That's what you have to look at when when you're determining if it's a 10-9 or if it's starting to slowly creep over to 10-8 territory, which will bring us to the next score, which would be a 10-8 round. And a 10-8 round in MMA is where one fighter wins the round by a large margin. Again, it's not close. Blew them out of the water. We're talking 10-8. 10-8 round in MMA, as the ABC states, is not the most common score a judge will render, but it is absolutely essential, as they say, to the evolution of the sport and the fairness to the fighters, that judges understand and can effectively utilize the 10-8. A score of 10-8 does not require a fighter to dominate their opponent for 5 minutes of the round. The score of 10-8 is utilized by the judge when the judge sees verifiable actions on the part of the fighter. The judge shall always give the score of a 10-8 when the judge has established that one fighter has dominated the action of the round and has had duration of the domination, also has impacted their opponent with either effective strikes or effective grappling maneuvers that have diminished the abilities of their fighter. So again, you need to have, for a 10-8 round to occur, you need to have not just dominance, but you need to have duration of the dominance. So if you have dominance for a brief point, but then the other fighter comes back, he's able to fight back, is able to inflict some damage of their own, then you start kind of fading back to 10-9 territory. However, if that dominance has duration, if that damage has duration, you're watching, and that fighter is continuing to damage, and it is taking a long duration as they are dishing out that damage, you are now headed to 10-8 territory. Judges must consider giving the score 10-8 when a fighter shows dominance in the round, even though no impactful scoring against the opponent was achieved. MMA is an offensive-based sport. No scoring is given for defensive maneuvers. Using smart, and that's important, no scoring is given for defensive maneuvers. Your scoring is given for offensive maneuvers. Okay. Using smart, tactically sound defensive maneuvers allows the fighter to stay in the fight and to be competitive. Dominance of a round can be seen in striking when the losing fighter continually attempts to defend with no counters or reaction taken. When when no counters or reactions taken when no scoring is given for defensive maneuvers. Using smart, tactically sound defensive maneuvers will allow the fighter to stay in the fight and to be competitive. Dominance of a round can be seen in striking when the losing fighter continually attempts to defend, with no counters or reaction taken when openings present themselves. Dominance in the grappling phase can be seen by a fighter taking dominant positions in the fight and utilizing those positions to attempt fight-ending submissions or attacks. If a fighter has little to no offensive output during a 5-minute round, it should be normal for the judges to consider awarding the losing fighter 8 points instead of 9. Judges must consider giving the score of 10-8 when a fighter impacts their opponent significantly in a round, even though they do not dominate the action. Effectiveness in striking or grappling, which leads to a diminishing of the fighter's energy, confidence, and abilities, as well as spirit. All these come as a direct result of negative impact. When a fighter is hurt with strikes, shows a lack of control or ability, these can be defining moments in the fight. If a judge sees that a fighter has been significantly damaged in the round, the judge should consider that score of 10-8. So again, we're talking about, dominance and duration. And that goes for both effective striking and effective grappling. Like it states, if you have superior position, especially in grappling, when you have a dominant position, you have to also be attempting to end the fight. They don't just go hand in hand. Just because you have a dominant position does not necessarily mean that you are attempting to end the fight. It's just not the case. There's a lot of fighters that, who knows, maybe gas tank, whatever, they get the dominant position, and they're just managing to hold the dominant position to avoid the other guy from escaping. That's fine and good, but that is not trying to end the fight. You're not working towards ending the fight just by holding the position. The ABC also has definitions of all these terms that I've been saying: impact, dominance, duration. Okay, first we'll talk about impact. Judges shall assess if a fighter impacts their opponent significantly in the round, even though they may not have dominated any of the action or some of the action. Impact includes visible evidence such as swelling and lacerations. Impact shall also be assessed when a fighter's actions using striking or grappling lead to a diminishing of their opponent's energy, confidence, abilities, and spirit. All of these come as direct results of the impact. When a fighter is impacted with strikes by lack of control and or ability, this can create defining moments in the round, which would be assessed with great value. So again, if somebody lands a head kick, an overhand right, and that is clearly, you see them wobbled, you see they're diminishing of their abilities, you see it opens up, has a huge hematoma above the eye. These are evidence of damage. These are evidence of impact. Okay. Now we go down to dominance. As MMA is an offensive-based sport, dominance of a round can be seen in striking when the losing fighter is forced to continually defend. Again, then we're talking about dominance here, with no counters or reactions taken when the openings present themselves. So if you're being beat bad and there are openings that you cannot take advantage of, that is, you are now being shown that you are that the other fighter has dominance over you. Okay, dominance in the grappling phase can be seen by fighters taking dominant positions in the fight and, again, using those positions to attempt fight-ending submissions or attacks. Not just latching on to a submission that might be there, but you are attempting to find those fight-ending submissions and attacks. Merely holding dominant positions will not be a primary factor in assessing dominance. What a fighter does with these positions is what must be assessed. Just having the position is not good enough, but it's what you're going to do with that position. Again, you can have someone mounted, but that does not mean you are attempting to end the fight. That does not mean you are going to end the fight. And that's how you're assessing dominance. And then the third piece of that puzzle is duration. And duration is defined by the time spent by one fighter effectively attacking. Again, effectively attacking, controlling, and impacting their opponent, while their opponent is offering little to no offensive output. Again, if someone's on top and they're attacking, they're controlling, they're impacting their opponent, and the opponent is offering little to no offense, the clock is going. That counts as duration. Okay, a judge shall assess duration by the recognizing the relative time in a round when one fighter takes and maintains full control of the effective offense. Again, the key is effective offense. We're not talking about just positions. We're talking about effective offense. And this can be assessed both standing and grounded. You see it both on the feet when, maybe both fighters are moving around, but you're getting dominance in duration, and one fighter is just not able to effectively use his techniques. He's not able to strike effectively. Can offer no offense. Is just basically on the receiving end of effective strikes, or can be effective grappling. But that's basically how you're going to assess the duration. And once you see that duration is going to determine whether or not that goes to a 10-8 round. Now, in a very rare set of circumstances, will you find yourself judging a 10-7 round? It can happen. However, super rare. A lot of times, maybe one could even argue the fight should be stopped at this point. but for one reason or another, it hasn't been. A 10-7 round could potentially happen. A 10-7 round in MMA is when a fighter completely overwhelms their opponent in effective striking and or grappling, and a stoppage is warranted. Again, most of the time, a fight will probably be stopped by this point. But if, in fact, it starts looking to fit this criteria, 10-7 is something that can be scored. A 10-7 round in MMA is a score that judges will very rarely give, again, because oftentimes the fight is stopped by that point. It takes both overwhelming dominance of a round, but also significant impact, okay? And that will cause the judge to consider that the fight could be stopped. You know, you start seeing, oh man, this fight should be stopped here, or this could be stopped any second now, and you know the opponent, you know the guy who's winning is inflicting a ton of damage, a ton of impact, and they're doing it for a long duration of time. They're not getting any response back. The fight could be stopped here. You start looking at could possibly be 10-7. Judges shall look for multiple impactful blows or knockdowns that diminish the fighter and or grappling maneuvers that place the fighter in dominant situations, with impact being inflicted that visibly diminishes the fighter's ability to compete. Again, couldn't be any clearer right there. When you're starting to see that it's diminishing the fighter's ability to compete, and that it is overwhelming striking and grappling, and again, probably a stoppage is warranted. But that's where you're going to get in to that 10-7 round. Remember, you have to have all that dominance, you have to have all that duration, and you have to have significant impact. Again, significant impact, and that you would consider the fight to be stopped. Then you can start looking at that 10-7 round. But yeah, I want to thank you for watching. That's a video that I've just wanted to do for a little while now, and I'm really hoping that people, fighters, and even fans alike, coaches, everybody really who's involved with the sport will take time to download the ABC Unified Rules and go over the MMA judging criteria. It's going to answer a lot of questions for you. So I appreciate you watching the video. And if you have any questions, go ahead, put them in the comments.